Hello, I'm Sudarshana Starshine Star. I am going to do a very interesting clip here. Today is Saturday. It's a beautiful Saturday, July 20th, 2024. And I will put this on my YouTube account or YouTube channel, which is called It's the Dazzling of the Light. Or you can just go to YouTube and type in at Sudarshana Starshine Star to access this clip and many others. There are over 100 clips on that channel now, and I think it's pretty good. You might want to check it out. It's also going to go on my TikTok, which is my third TikTok, after the first two have been banned, even though I only joined TikTok on Christmas 2023. I quickly went through a succession of TikToks, but I'm happy that I still have this third one, and I'm trying to grow it. It's Mahakali Yeshua 9, and my username there is Starshine Star 909. So I really ask, if you like this content, to please, whichever platform you're watching on, to like and share and subscribe and hit the notification bell and all of that good stuff. I really appreciate you doing that. Thank you so much. I like to start all my clips with the 3 opening prayers. They're in Sanskrit and Telugu, and they're short. This is to bless and protect, uplift, and inspire you, me, and this clip. They're the Guru Mantra, the Ganesha Mantra, and the Gayatri Mantra. Om, Om, Om. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahmam Tasmahi Sri Guruvena Namaha. Om Suklam Bharataram Vishnum Sashivarnam Chatobhujam Prasanavaranam Dhyaye Sarva Vigno Prashamtaye. Om Bhur Bhuva Suvaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhago Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachotayat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. All right, I saw this earlier today, a post that sparked in me this feeling, and when I have this inspiration inside, this feeling, I always follow it. Even if it feels scary, if it feels uncomfortable, if it feels weird, I have to follow when I get that light of inspiration inside of me, because I know it's like coming from my higher self and from the divine, pushing me to do something or speak to something or act on something that's in alignment with what I really am. And sometimes that's at odds with my, little small peanut human mind self that's like, no, I don't want to do that. Well, I'm doing it. Okay. So this, I've spoken recently about how much I like Ariel on X, and his handle there is @Proletaria1. I also stated that I don't always agree with what he puts out. I generally do. He has a lot of good information, and he's a good being with a good heart. But when I read this to you, there are things in here. I'm going to read the whole thing, this whole reveal, and I have a reason for doing that. And then I'm going to tell you some things that I know are not true about that based on my own experience, not to shade Ariel. But it's going to lead into, after that, I'm going to do a personal reveal about, which is things I've talked a little bit about in some of my clips that I put up on TikTok and on YouTube, specifically mentioning that I have my stepfather's the most famous, quote, shaman, end quote, on the earth. And even though I haven't had nothing to do with him or my stepbrothers or any of my step family whatsoever for many years, anyway, I never gave his name, and I will after I read this reveal clip from Ariel. And what it sparked in me is I'm also going to reveal how I knew, even though it was back in the day, how I knew some of the Getty family and also Gavin Newsom, personally. So I have to share a little bit about that. All right, so let me get to, first I'm going to read This is from today. Like I said, it's a post, and here we go. This is from Ariel. And he's saying, oh, and I want to mention one more thing. Ariel oftentimes uses incorrect grammar. He does it, I believe, on purpose. It's like when he's trying to be emphatic and he's being slangy. He's a very intelligent guy. I know he knows proper English grammar. So I'm just reading what he wrote, but if I'm saying things, then you might think. I'm especially saying that for some people who maybe English isn't their first language, and if they hear this, and they'll be thinking that I'm advocating improper grammar, and I'm not. It's just some of it is slangy, and he on purpose speaks, incorrectly. All right. Here's Ariel. Why I think Kimberly Guilfoyle is in Gitmo. Donald Trump never liked Kimberly Guilfoyle. Melania Trump never liked Kimberly Guilfoyle. Melania Trump, I'm repeating that. Yes, Melania Trump never liked Kimberly Guilfoyle. And all of them had valid reasons for it. Kimberly Guilfoyle dated 2 liberals who disliked Donald Trump. She even was giddy about her ex, Gavin Newsom, running for the 2024 presidency last year. Do you all remember when she was bragging to Katrina Pearson about raising money for the, quote, Stop the Steal, end quote, rally? The House Select Committee investigating the riot has subpoenaed Guilfoyle, suggesting her potential role in the rally that preceded the attack. I hope you all know that this rally was created to pin the insurrection charges on Donald Trump so they could remove him from the presidential race. Why do you think the media went out of their way to ignore the statement made on that day by Donald Trump that when he was calling for, quote, peaceful protest, end quote? Same for the Mar-a-Lago raid that was designed to set him up for illegally attaining documents that were not supposed to be on his property, even though as president at the time he had privilege to do so if that was ever an issue. You all have to understand how treasonous, and I'm going to just say January, and then the number is the number that comes after 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What comes after 5? That's that number. January, that number. Was the media will tell you that it was created as a rally cry for the 2020 election results. No, that was the guise it was being portrayed as, because I showed you all the players involved by name who worked for the CIA. If they were serious about the 2020 election fraud, they would have went into an Article 3 court with a, quote, chain of custody reports, end quote, detailing everything which is required before you bring any complaints to a judge, which is why Kari Lake was not taken seriously when she whined, cried, and complained about the election fraud. And I'm going to interrupt Ariel's post here for a minute to say, and Lynn Wood on Telegraph has shown a lot of this for a while, and I checked it out myself, and it looks to be true to me. Kari Lake was a Baphomet. That means a biological male that poses to be, gets breast implants and poses to be a female on top, male underneath. They keep the male undercarriage, like the satanic god they worship, which is a Baphomet. That goat-headed image that has an erect penis, female breasts, and 2 fingers pointing up and 2 fingers pointing down in this as above, so below satanic signature body movement. And that's the official image at the, the Church of Satan and different things. They have the statues of this Baphomet everywhere. And so Kari Lake, was not a good man, posing as a woman, was in the cult, and was had even this person, Kari Lake, also referred to himself as the female Donald Trump, and was very much on that path like General Michael Flynn was, that they wanted to be the ones in charge. They're not good. So anyway, I just wanted to interject that. Okay, back to Ariel. The real crime committed that day was a seditious conspiracy, aiding and abetting, or conspiracy to defraud the American government. They basically set up that entire rally to put the blame on D. Trump so they could get Michael Flynn in for the coalition government that they was promoting on Alex Jones, that was announced by Roger Stone and bragged about by Patrick Byrne. And I also have to make a little note here. Michael Flynn was never good. He was once again in the satanic dark cult. He was given a chance by President Trump. He was pardoned and given a chance, but he took the wrong U-turn again. He never really did anything great. People say, oh, he's an American hero. Why is he an American hero? He's not. He always wanted to be president, and he's not around anymore. There's only a 2.0, what's called like the replacement, that you see at the rallies or different things where they're promoting, and he's charging exorbitant fees and earning tons of money for nothing, really. Just talking about nothing from the people as he tours around the U.S. That's not a white hot hat operation. Don't go to those rallies. Don't waste your money. But the real 1.0, General Michael Flynn, was very much instrumental in setting up. He had something called a Pegasus project, which was his dark cyber forces that really were so hideous and treasonous and spied on all the American people and infiltrated so much. And he's just responsible for a lot of really terrible things, which is why he had his military tribunal and received judgment for treason and crimes against humanity, whether it was at Gitmo or another place where the white hat military holds these military tribunals. There's different places. They have them in different countries, and they also hold them on big ships that are just at sea. Anyway, but the when she received judgment for a capital crime like treason or crimes against humanity, which involves, the sex trafficking of children and other humans, the rape of children, the torture of children and babies, the drinking of their blood, the procurement of the substance adrenochrome, which is procured after you torture a baby or a child to the nth degree, so much that adrenaline floods their blood system, and then the satanic evils, which they've been doing this for thousands and thousands of years. They take that blood, which is then called adrenochrome, and they also, while the baby or child is alive, they remove the pineal gland, which they call the walnut, and they eat it. There's also another substance called chromochrome, which is achieved the same way, but it's even more pricey and more rare. It's coming from the pituitary gland, and it's something like, 7 times the price of the real adrenochrome, which is really expensive, really exorbitantly expensive. There's also fake adrenochrome, or I could say a chemical adrenochrome that the evils had to start making after President Trump came into office and started cracking down on the labs and shutting down the production of the real adrenochrome. They started making the chemical one just because all the people in Hollywood and the politicians and everyone who weren't picked up yet, they were going through severe withdrawals, which is why, if you notice, why did you see Celine Dion, who was a man, who was a Baphomet, turn into a living Skeletor that you could never see? Why did you see Johnny Depp, who was a biological female? These vampires turn into really another living skeleton for no reason and walk around and show themselves. Why did you see Kathy Griffin, who was really one of Gloria Vanderbilt's sons, who was a Baphomet, turned into a, part female, posed as a female, had that comedy career, and who was also the, Anderson Cooper, the newscaster, the famous newscaster, who was openly known as Gloria Vanderbilt's son, is really Anderson Vanderbilt, and that Kathy Griffin was really his biological brother. But you see Kathy Griffin, those photos when Kathy Griffin, it was some of the worst pictures you could ever see. Like if you see a skeleton, that's a skeleton times 10, and that also is about 1,005 years old. And why did they allow these pictures is because I think they got to have some kind of clemency in the way that they were executed or something like that, because they of their own would not show these pictures. The same thing as you see from the things like the Hollywood Baphomet, one of the famous Friends, quote-unquote actresses, which was a Baphomet, a biological male that looks like a female, Courtney Cox. I'm sure years ago, when I first saw it many years ago, I thought it was false too, because I couldn't believe that Courtney Cox would look like a living skeleton man who lost all their hair overnight in very skimpy ponytails like you'd see on a 300-year-old lady. covered in wrinkles and everything, a close-up photo of that. But that's what happens with when they're not taking adrenochrome anymore. Yep. Anyway, I don't know why I went off on that. Oh yeah, because of the I was talking about General Flynn, Michael Flynn, and how there's only a 2.0 out there now. Anyway, so Roger Stone and Patrick Byrne, these are baddies. So let me go back to Ariel's post. This is why we are looking at a lot of doubles walking around that do not look like the original person. Yes, hello. Then Ariel says Nancy Drew, and he's referring to a nom de plume, if you will, of a wonderful American patriot who lives in Washington, D.C., who goes around on her phone and does live streams, and she has for many years. She shows we the people what's really going on in D.C., how it's shut down. She goes all around, walking all around in her flip-flops, talking to people, filming everything on lives. So you can't say that it's doctored. And she's shown so many things. God bless her. Anyway, Nancy Drew caught on video years ago many political figures being rounded up. People do not understand that all of this is being rolled out this way in a controlled manner, and it's because the general public does not know these people committed crimes that cannot be tried in any civilian or federal court, which is why none of them were arrested by national law enforcement as far as police. Once you committed treason, you were in the hands of military tribunals that a judiciary judge cannot oversee. This is why people like Alec Baldwin could walk away free from shooting someone. But if the people ever figured out his crimes against humanity actions that involved children, he wouldn't have been given any exoneration. And I don't believe he really walked away free, because he's very much in the dark cult, very much in the adrenochrome, crimes against humanity with children things. So I definitely don't believe that he's walking around anyway. But back to Ariel's post. D. Trump knows the Stop the Steal rally was designed to frame him for a crime set up by Michael Flynn and other CIA cronies. The reason everything fell through with that event was because D. Trump already removed us from underground, the 1871 Corporation Act. And in case you don't know that, he's talking about, the United States of America was hijacked in 1871. It used to be called, with regular capitalization, which just means the first letter of each word was capitalized, the United States for America. And when the evils infiltrated it and took it over and made it into a corporation, they capitalized, which signifies that it's a corporation. It's all in caps, and the name was changed to the United States of America. The real Constitution was taken away, even though the White Hats do have actual copies of the real that were made at the time the real Constitution was made, but the evils didn't know that. They thought they had destroyed it, so they subbed in a Constitution that has some fake things in it. And we have been literally owned and been slaves, all of us, since 1871, but not anymore because of Donald Trump and the White Hats, who restored our republic in July of 2020. But that's another story. So that's what he means when he said he removed us from the 1871 Corporation Act. So back to Ariel's post, he said, so legally he was right when he stated he was not president in 2021. And what Ariel's referring to is because presidents of the United States are presidents of a corporation, like a big company. That's what they are. That's why they're called president. And so when Donald Trump dissolved that, he was inaugurated as the 19th president of the Republic, going back since Ulysses S. Grant, that treasonous traitor, the 18th president, was the one who agreed to sell us out to the European devil, Illuminati, Khazaria Mafia, satanic bloodline people, families out of Venice and Rome, the City of London, royals, all of that. So Ulysses S. Grant was the 18th president, so Donald Trump is the 19th president, and he's CIC. He is CIC, Commander-in-Chief. Anyway, so Ariel he says, here's the link, and he gives it .yahoo.com /news /Trump 4A, and then ... Then he's showing a picture of some of the Donald Trump family members that's showing Kimberly Guilfoyle and also Ivanka's husband, Jared Kushner. And it says in parentheses, not Kim, not Jared. And what I want to comment on that is that's absolutely correct. There's something that I know way back in the day, it was a puzzlement to me and to many people. But Jared Kushner was part of the Khazaria Mafia. He infiltrated President Trump's family. Ivanka did not know. And he was very satanic, very much wanting to take down Donald Trump and everything else. So he infiltrated that family. And when it was found out, he, yes, had his military tribunal and received judgment for that. So I don't know if you notice, you can go back a few years and see why Jared Kushner, was a handsome looking guy. All of a sudden he turned into a bone thin, pure white, looked like a doll, like a large doll, that just was so different looking from the original Jared Kushner, a lifeless doll. And, he was replaced with that. That's a face mask, or whether that was someone who was a double who looked kind of like Jared Kushner, but there was no more Jared Kushner. And that's the reason why, if you follow the Trump family, that Ivanka was greatly held out in front by her father, and rightly so. She's a brilliant woman and very capable, not only in his business dealings, but when he was in politics, he was assigning, as he has been in politics, he was assigning things to her, delegating duties to her. But after it was discovered that Jared was, a satanic Khazarian mafia infiltrator, treasonous, that's why Ivanka had to step back. She would not be allowed to be in the forefront anymore, and associated with in publicly with her father's political career because of that. All right, so let me go back to this post. Now Ariel's saying everything Kim Guilfoyle done that lead to Guantanamo Bay. Number 1, fundraising for the rally. She raised $3 million for the rally as she, in a text message to Katrina Pearson, this was seen as supporting an event that ultimately led to violence and the breach of the Capitol. Number 2, influencing the rally lineup. If she attempted to influence the lineup of speakers at the rally, including far-right figures, this was seen as promoting a message that incited the crowd to violence. Number 3, involvement in the planning of the rally. She was involved in the planning and organization of the rally. Number 4, knowledge of or involvement in the broader plan. If she had knowledge or was involved in a broader plan that could make her liable for sedition or conspiracy to defraud the American government. All of this just a general outline of why she could possibly be in Gitmo, if we are just talking about January and then the day that comes after 5. But of course, there could be other unforeseen reasons given her history of dating the most satanic political figure in California, who is Gavin Newsom. The reason I say this is because California Governor Gavin Newsom was infected with COVID a day after meeting Prime Minister of New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern, who I'm interrupting and saying, and Jacinda was a Baphomet, another biological male posing as a female, as was seen when he would be walking down the corridors with cronies and his penis was visibly bobbling underneath the thin material dress he was wearing, much as Big Mike, as we call the former unalive now Michelle Obama, was biological male and was often caught with his male member swinging about. And yeah, anyway, let me go back to this. So Ariel says, we all know what this is code word for. He's talking about when someone comes down with COVID, what that means, whether it's a celebrity or a politician. Yeah, we know what that's code word for, which basically comes down to human trafficking. As I told you all, California has the most DUMBs. That's capital D, capital U, capital N, capital B, capital S. That stands for deep underground military bases. It also refers to underground cities. This whole Earth planet was full of them underneath everything. And some of them are very ancient satanic underground cities that are a couple thousand years old, like the really oldest ones under South Africa and under Australia and some places. And then more closer to the surface, even though still deep, more modern ones were built. And, that's a whole nother story. But I'd also, wait, I have to add one thing in here about, I just have to say, people that don't know that this whole earth has been claimed for a very long time, thousands of years, by Satan, really, and his minions. And these demonic forces, they claim, and it's a real thing, it's not airy-fairy, it's not pretend, it's not imaginary. They claim their territory. So they have their own like provinces and own territories. They all have their, out of, you know, the 13 satanic papal bloodline families, yeah, that you see, you know, connected to the Vatican, that were living in, you know, centered out of Venice, Italy, and Rome, Italy. And it was it's the same bloodline ruling families that came out of ancient Sumer and then Babylon, and then moved into different places in Europe, and moved into Khazaria, which is present-day Ukraine, hence the name Khazaria Mafia, moved into Europe, and then all over the place. This is the same bloodline that corrupted and became the satanic pharaohs of Egypt and the satanic Caesars of Rome. This is the same bloodline, and the same bloodline that's connected to the off-world and in Antarctica NAZI activities. It's all of a piece, and that's way too long for me to go into here. But California, and if you look on the flag, and you can see by the flags, it has a bear on the California flag. He's not around anymore, but the most, quote unquote, one of the most powerful men in the world, who was organizing things with the 13 satanic papal bloodline families, who are the top of the pyramid. They're the ones that communicated directly with Satan and, you know, received his commands and implemented them and all of that, was Pepe Orsini, who was known as the Gray Pope. There were three popes. The White Pope was always the one in the public eye who would live in Vatican City, and he seemed like he was powerful. No, he really wasn't. Then there was the Black Pope, who was the leader of the Jesuits, the military force, the military satanic force of the Vatican, and of those families carrying out their orders. And then the Gray Pope was always the high commander, and that was has been for a while Pepe Orsini. Why I'm saying that is in Latin, orso means bear, and the bear on the flag of California was designated that California, that state, was particularly a territory of the Orsini family. Yep. So there you go. Okay. Now let me go back to this post. Ariel saying, I highly doubt Kimberly Guilfoyle was totally oblivious to what Gavin Newsom side job is. This is one other reason why we have not seen the military tribunals as of yet, because it has to be kept under the radar until it becomes public discourse in an organic way. This is why Gavin Newsom went missing for 10 consecutive days back in 2021 when he was getting his COVID-19 shot, which is another code for Gitmo detainees. Look up that article. He was brought in and replaced that year. All right, that's the end of Ariel's post. This is getting so long, but I have to say what I wanted to say about my own personal experience is that you can go on my YouTube channel. It's The Dazzling of the Light, like I said, or just type in at Sudarshana Starshine Star, and you can see the audios and the videos there that are named and hear more about when I said personal reveals about my stepfather, who's the most famous shaman in the world. I go into more depth, but here's what I want to say. It was, I've said it, and I think it's important to mention this. I have had incredible life experience with what was called the most famous shaman in the world, and my stepfather and my stepbrothers now. Not knowing that they were Luciferian, not knowing it was a Luciferian bloodline, just believing it was a Toltec bloodline, like they say, you know, out of Mexico, and they're called Naguals, Naguals, which you might have heard about if you've read any of Carlos Castaneda's books, and but they're Luciferian. And I also said in a recent post how I found that out, even though many terrible things had occurred to me since I was a girl that I couldn't explain. I was a formal apprentice of my stepfather since I was a girl. I had a formal shamanic apprenticeship, which was rare, even though he had thousands and thousands of students and what he later called apprentices all over the world. Very few were actually initiated into a formal, intimate, private shamanic ceremony with my mother operating as the Nawal woman, and another woman who I won't name her, I'll respect her privacy, but I only found out immediately after that ceremony, which took place on the cliffs of La Jolla, California, which is a part of San Diego. And it was involving all the elements and also my soul, part of my soul, which I was not aware of, but I did give full permission. I was giving full permission to become a formal apprentice of, his name is Don Miguel Ruiz, and his most famous book, even though it wasn't his first one, was called The Four Agreements. And he has many books. I won't name them all. If you don't know who he is and you look up Miguel, his name is really Miguel Angel Ruiz, but he's called Don Miguel Ruiz, and Don is not his first name. Don is a Spanish honorific. I have 3 stepbrothers. The last one is not in the bloodlines. He was adopted, so that's why he's not famous, writing books and touring all over the world and everything, giving lectures and power journeys. My stepbrother, who's called Miguel Angel Ruiz Jr., we always call him Mike or Mikey, and then another stepbrother who's called Don Jose Luis Ruiz. So it's Don Jose Luis, Don Miguel Jr., and then my last stepbrother's called Don. His name is Leonardo Carlos, so he's called Don Leo. People call him Leo, but he's not well known because, like I said, he was adopted. He's not my stepfather's biological son. So anyway, I've had since I was a girl, so I apprenticed with that. And I didn't know at the time because I gave full permission during that shamanic apprenticeship. And I didn't realize, even though something very satanic happened after that, which I got no answers for. I was asking questions back in the car going back of Miguel and my mother. And I can't tell that story here because this really is too long. I will tell it in another clip though. I didn't know that a piece of my soul had been taken. And unfortunately, because my mother was standing in, even though she had no idea, my mother never knew that Miguel was really Luciferian, at least not consciously. We always were following what we thought was a Toltec tradition, and the Nawal way, and a shamanic path. And anyway, but I did get, my mother passed away unexpectedly. It was a big shock. She had a good death though. I mean, I know our Swami Sri Kaleshwar just came and took her. She's very peaceful. She got up early in the morning. It was in June 2018, and like she usually would get up to meditate and stuff. And she went into the sofa at the end of her bed, and she was just sitting straight up with her phone on one of the armchairs, and she was in meditation, and she just left her body. So she just passed very peacefully, but it was a big shock to us. She was not old enough to really pass, and she wasn't a young woman, but it was a big shock. And more I'll get into later as I talk. And so the passing of my mother, while it ostensibly freed me up to say things more that I didn't want to say to really hurt her, even though she knew a lot of the terribleness that I had received and had experienced, she was completely unaware of a lot of other things. And I really didn't want to break her spirit like that. But after she passed, it was like I had more freedom, but I still couldn't talk about it. Why I'm mentioning this is I didn't know, and it was almost 2 days until her body was discovered, because she was in her home in Carlsbad, California, and she had 2 women that were living in the she had a first floor or subfloor apartments made, and 2 women were living in those apartments. And even though they knew something was wrong, because they were calling my mom on her cell phone and her bedroom door was shut and she wasn't coming out like she always did, and she wasn't answering her cell phone, they were just too afraid. And I understand, they just knew that she had passed, and they just didn't want to face it. But finally, after almost 2 days, they called the authorities, and then the coroner came and took her and everything. But while I was in another, I wasn't in California, I was in another state, and I didn't consciously know at that time that my mother had passed. But her picture, one of her pictures that I had by my front door, it kept falling on the ground like several times for no reason. And I would go pick it up, and I remember I would be laughing, and I looked at it and I was like, Mama, if you keep doing this, I'm going to have to move you to another place. It was obviously her spirit trying to get my attention to like give her a call or something that she had passed. But right after, it was about a day after she had passed, I was sitting on my couch in my living room, and I hadn't yet found out officially that my mother had passed. So a piece of my soul that I didn't even know was missing came back into my body. and it injured at both soles of both of my feet. If you could imagine, like putting two fire hoses flush up against the soles of your feet and turning them on full blast. That's what it felt like physically. I wasn't asleep. I wasn't in meditation. I wasn't dreaming. I wasn't having visions. I was wide awake. And it came up like that from my feet and moving up my legs and everything else. And when it got to my midsection, it felt like my mother, but it also felt like Mother Divine. And I said, stop, out loud. I said, stop. And I had like a moment because I felt like I was turning into my mother. That's what it felt like. And I said, stop. And to myself, I said, I don't want to be exactly like my mother. And then I paused for a few seconds. And then I was like, all right, go ahead. Because it was a mix. It felt like my mother. My mother's name was Gaia, Gaya. But it also really felt like Mother Divine. And so I didn't really know what was going on. But I said, okay, go ahead. And then it continued flushing up from my midsection, my waist, all the way up my body to the top of my head. And it took some time for me to assimilate that had happened so long ago. And I hadn't realized, even though it made sense of a lot of things I experienced, that, and that was part of my stepfather, Miguel Ruiz, is not a Satanist. There's a difference between Luciferians and Satanists. They're both, which I found out from Ashiana Dean, I really respect her. They're both offshoots of the same family of the Elohim that are fallen angel family. They're a good Elohim and they're the fallen angel Elohim. And there's the satanic branch and the Luciferian branch. And the Luciferians, really pride themselves on, it's all about, inserting the ego or the intellect as like the kind of the king on the throne. Really operating from that with a great superiority, like a great knowledge of like these superior intellects and all this stuff, and not coming from the heart and not coming from the divine intuition, even though they believe that they are. And my stepfather's family, my stepfather's mother, her name was Sarah Vasquez. She was called Sarita. She's a very famous, well-known curandera or healer, famous around the world. She was known first as Sister Sarita and then Madre Sarita. And I was also, in part of my apprenticeship, since I was a young girl, I was born with healing hands. I was born with a healing energy in my hands since I came on the planet. But I became one of her first gringa apprentices, and I worked in the healing rooms for many years. I worked as her direct apprentice. Not really when my mother first encountered Miguel Ruiz, when she was still married to my father, my biological father. She had gone to a shamanic journey to Peru and had almost been kidnapped by a Don Eduardo there who wanted to kidnap my mother to be his Noel woman. And she came back. And when she came back to San Diego, she went to continue her shamanic studies. So she was looking for a shamanic family in the San Diego area. And she found one in an area very close to Mexico called the Barrio Logan, very close to Mexico. And the name of the temple was called Nueva Vida, which means new life. And that's where Sarita was working, doing psychic surgeries and aura cleansings and lecturas, life readings, and things like that. She was very well known. But then after my mother and Miguel married, then they set up a second temple right in the center of San Diego, which was also called Nueva Vida. And that's when Miguel set up his Sixth Sun Foundation and stuff like that. I can't go into all of that here because it's too long, but I wanted to say that now I've told who he is. And I've had nothing to do with him or my stepbrothers or anything since the day that I talked about in one of my most recent clips on February 2nd, 2019, when I was hit on the head by an etheric lightning strike in my kitchen. It was divine, and it knocked me to my knees on my kitchen floor. It gave me an instant download that was filling in the missing pieces that I couldn't understand about my stepfather and my stepfamily, even though I'd stayed away from them for years. And even though my mother passed in June 2018, the last time I saw her alive physically was at one of Miguel's houses in San Diego in June 2013. And the horrific experience I had there, even though I had been staying away, I'd only been seeing my mother like once in person every 4 years because That's another story, but I didn't know that Miguel was sucking on her womb chakra energy and that she was filled with some kind of demon, and no one else saw it outside of my family. And it was really intolerable for me to be around her, and I didn't know what was going on, but I just knew I didn't want to be around it. And since I had become my Swami's student in summer of 1997, I didn't have Don Miguel Ruiz as my teacher in any way. I only wanted him as my stepfather, and I just had nothing to do with his teachings. You see the real thing, you recognize it. And Sri Kaleshwar was Siddhapurusha Avatara. He's one of the Saptarishis. That means one of the 7 creator souls that help Mother Divine create and organize and kind of take care of this creation. And he was the real thing. But people ask me, the people that I know, because a lot of people that have been with Miguel Ruiz, and they've called me over many years, and they would tell me their horrible, devilish experiences, and they don't know what's going on. And then I tell them, okay, I'll tell you the truth. So then I talk to them about things and share things and try to help them, and like that. And but my Swami, real masters, they don't try to boss you around. Yes, they have their own guidelines if you want to receive their teachings. And the Indian Vedic way is very strict and disciplined. But in terms of if you're not seeing something in your life, and maybe you're not ready to see it, they're not going to spill the beans to you. And there's a timing to everything. So my mother was so attached to Miguel, and my Swami tried so many times to hint to her, what he really was. But he couldn't outright say it because my mother wouldn't accept that if he said, oh, blah, blah, blah. But I do have, which I'll talk about later in another clip, in public, in India, where my Swami told my brother, I have 2 biological sisters and a biological brother, told my brother flat out when my brother was pleading and crying. And at the time I would too, in 2002, when my stepfather had a heart attack, his first heart attack in the bottom of a volcano in Hawaii on a power journey. My mother was there along with some other students. I wasn't there. And he should have been dead in the bottom of that volcano. My Swami said that was his karma for all the heartbreak he had caused and all the negativity that he had brought on the planet. And my brother was just, he didn't comprehend that. And even though my Swami said flat out, he asked my brother 3 times, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? Because my brother was begging with my Swami to send some energy to save Miguel's life. And Swami said flat out, he's a big Rakshasa. Rakshasa in India means demon. He's a huge demon. And so that was heard by several people. Even though my brother is still to this day, even though I haven't seen him for a while, my family's very divided and split up. I told him in 2019 all the full truth of Miguel and my experiences, which my sisters could corroborate, but my brother hadn't experienced. And I told him the truth, but still he was partnering with one of our stepbrothers, Don Jose Luis, because my brother's a spiritual teacher, and he's authentic. He has nothing to do with Luciferian things, but he doesn't know the harm he's causing himself by still linking up with the Ruizes. He just refuses to believe it. And so he has a big, huge ranch that my biological father bought along with my brother's girlfriend has money into it, and they created over the years a huge spiritual center. And I just wanted to warn my biological brother, please, when the truth comes out, you're gonna be harmed. Your reputation will be harmed, and all the teaching and everything that you've created for so many years is going to be under the spotlight and cast, into shadow when it becomes really known what Miguel Ruiz and my stepbrothers really are all about. But my brother just still kept partnering with our stepbrother Jose Luis and on taking trips to India and doing things and like that. So that is sad, but I have to finally talk about it. I've just been protecting people. I was raised, don't talk about things outside the family and things like that, but some things, they have to see the light of day. So, God, this is such a long clip. I want to say briefly, in my biological family, yes, I was raised in a very wealthy, privileged, upper middle class family. My brother, the same brother that I'm talking about, when he was 11 years old, he went away to boarding school. He prepped at Groton, which is a very exclusive school in Groton, Massachusetts. And when he got there, his roommate was Billy Getty, son of Gordon and Ann Getty. And they became more than best friends. They were like brothers, and they remained that way for decades. And they did, everything together. My brother was always taking time off from his college, like to hopping on the Getty private plane to go visit, King Juan Carlos with the Gettys in Spain, and doing all kinds of things. And what I'll say, I think I need to talk more about it in another clip because this is getting too long. I won't be able to post it on TikTok. So I knew personally, and have spent time with some of the Gettys, and never in a million years would have known. And I really don't believe Billy knew like what's underneath the Getty Museum. I know he knew. Like, I didn't know until after I became red pilled, and then I was like, okay, Ann Getty. I don't believe Ann Getty, who was ostensibly called Billy's mother. I believe that was a Baphomet, a biological male. I don't believe that was a female. I don't believe Ann Getty died a natural death or of a disease. I believe that person was picked up, as well as Gordon Getty. But we were not a part of that. And we're not part of the club. We're not in the bloodlines. It's such a tricky situation. But also, as a part of that, when we were all young, one of my sisters, my family's very skilled, and they're all very beautiful and can do a lot of things very well and stuff like that. My sister was Gavin Newsom's executive assistant, his only assistant in his office in the restaurant in Cow Hollow, part of San Francisco, California, that Billy Getty owned with Gavin Newsom. And it was just when Gavin became superintendent of San Francisco. So my sister was his executive assistant. She helped him to manage that, and would also help to manage and travel to the Lake Tahoe properties. And Gavin had a Plump Jack winery. And if you know about those wineries in the wine country in California, how they are now well known to be scouting out for when single women or people would show up for the wine tastings, and they would run a check on them and they had no living family members, they'd be taken down to the dumps for either human trafficking or used for sex trafficking or satanic ritual abuse ceremonies or whatever. And that is real, and that happened, as well as their wineries. A lot of their wine that they were shipping out had adrenochrome in it, not red wine, not pinkish red wine, but adrenochrome. So there's my brother is 6'5", and Billy is just a little shorter than that, and Gavin is just a little shorter than that. So when they were all very young, they were all very handsome men. Billy and my brother actually were kind of prettier looking, kind of like super gorgeous. Gavin was always handsome, but he had a more strictly masculine look to his face, where my brother and Billy look kind of like angels. They're very pretty looking guys, giants, and they would be striding around. I was there for a time. I've lived in San Francisco a few times, and the first time I lived there, I went with my mother. I came from New York, where I'd been in some schooling, and my mother was looking to buy some property. So we were hanging out for a couple of months before I settled there myself, hanging out a lot and visiting my sister, who was at Plump Jack. We go and pick her up for lunch and hang out with Gavin. And I spent one of my birthdays at Gavin's home when I had just moved to San Francisco. My brother knew I didn't know anybody, and so he invited me over to Gavin's house in the marina. Gavin's fiancée at the time was the socialite Kelly Flieger, who I believe was a Baphomet, and who later, after Gavin dumped Kelly Flieger later met Don Johnson at a big birthday party for Don Johnson that was held at Plump Jack restaurant, and Kelly Flieger married Don Johnson. I believe Don Johnson is a FTM, biological female. But they're all in the cabal, they're all in the system. But I don't believe Billy knew or partook in the satanic ritual abuse of children, whatever. Nancy Pelosi, Gavin's aunt, is another story. It was always very strange, because Billy Getty was very refined, had very refined taste, except he would eat like kind of junk food. Like every time I would go over like to his apartment on Green Street in Pacific Heights or whatever, he'd be out places, they'd be ordering pizza, like from North Beach Pizza, eating pizza. And when he could have any kind of food in the world. And then it makes me kind of creep out when I think of Nancy Pelosi's Goat Hill Pizza in San Francisco, which is now known to that their sausage and meats had some of that forbidden meat in it. You know, that meat that's at McDonald's and fast food, the meat that no human should eat. Very terrible. But anyway, my point in saying that is that I know Gavin Newsom is not around anymore, and something happened to him. This is not the Gavin that I knew, back in the day when I would see how he was as he rose politically. He literally looked so satanic. His eyes were so demonic. I think he's possessed by so much dark energy. That's not how he was when he was younger, even though looking at and knowing when he, I'm really spilling the tea here. When my sister was his assistant, she also had an affair with Gavin, even though he was with Kelly Flieger. And later, it wasn't serious, but later when they broke up and Gavin was going for Kimberly Guilfoyle, my sister was really counseling him, don't go for Kimberly Guilfoyle. She's like really bad news. And she was really trying to, steer Gavin away. And we knew nothing about the cult, or I really truly believe that Kimberly Guilfoyle, the original, was a Baphomet as well. Had a very lanky, young male, beautiful looking body, but with a huge Kardashian kind of Brazilian butt implant thing happening. Slim, flattish chested, a jaw so square that it could make Ernest Borgnine look feminine, like that. But it was very attractive and very stylish and fashionable. So this Kimberly Guilfoyle, I know, is a face mask. This is where Ariel's talking about. I think that's like Kimberly Guilfoyle, who's, I think it could be Don Jr.'s actual wife posing in that face mask, has been doing like a double sting operation. When Ariel talks about all the reasons why he thinks Kimberly Guilfoyle is in Gitmo, I don't think that Kimberly Guilfoyle 1.0 is on the earth at all. And I think for a long time, this Kimberly Guilfoyle that poses as John Jr.'s girlfriend and doesn't dress the same way or act the same way, kind of looks like a low grade, not very stylish, very loud and more vulgar than the original Baphomet Kimberly Guilfoyle, from my experience. So I know for sure that is not the real Kimberly Guilfoyle 1.0. I don't know how long this is. I got to end this clip now. I have much more to say, but I'm going to end this here. I don't think it's so important to talk about myself, but I do have to share things. For most of my life, people have always been asking about me and my family, always wanting to know stuff, and I can't share certain things I know without letting people know how I know it and what my experience is. And I've sat on this for so long, and I was unable to speak about it. I love my nieces and nephews, my step nieces and nephews. I didn't want to hurt them, but the truth has to be known. Okay, I'm going to end this with the prayer in Sanskrit and Telugu. What I'm saying is, God bless all beings in all worlds. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace. God bless you all. God bless you and yours. I'm sending huge love to you and yours. I will see you when I see you, and bye-bye for now.